What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Amateur Hour TV for another video on the second channel for Amateur Hour. Been a little bit of a break from this channel. I've had a really busy week, but happy to be back today giving you some Raptors content. On this channel, the vibes are a little bit different than the main channel, Amateur Hour Sports, with over 11,000 subscribers there. Tons of Raptors content you may want to check out if you've not done so already. On this channel, a little bit less formal, a little bit more of a personal touch from me. And the goal of this channel is essentially I want to talk about more Raptors things that I just don't really have enough time to go through on the main channel, but I still want to document them, and I still want to talk about them. We do so on this channel. We're getting close to 2,000 subs. Make sure you're subbed to keep up to date with the content, help us get to that milestone, and if you want to see more, and you want to help spread the word of the channel, be sure to like this video as well. And today's video, this is one that I've kind of had in the back pocket for like 11 days. Like I said, I've had a really busy week, busy couple of weeks with my 9-to-5 job that's turned into more of like an 8-to-7 job the last 2 weeks. And having to find the time within that to get the YouTube videos on the main channel, it's just been tough to get out on this channel. But let's finally dive into it. So I saw this tweet. Usually a lot of the videos I do here are kind of sparked by tweets I just want to discuss. I feel like it's a kind of a good little vibe that we have. But here's the tweet in question. Pretty simple. StatMuse really starting a war. I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw this tweet and I just went, oh my goodness, do they have any idea? I mean, I'm sure obviously they do. Do they have any sort of idea what they have just done here? So the comparison, as you saw from the title, as you saw from the thumbnail, the comparison is between Pascal Siakam and Brandon Ingram. What's really interesting about these players is that they were drafted in the same year. I'm going to pull up the draft right now so you can see, where everybody went in this particular draft. I believe it was a 2016 draft. It was indeed. So Ben Simmons goes first. Brandon Ingram goes second to the Lakers. They don't really get anything out of him, but we'll blame it on the Lakers, not on Brandon Ingram, because he's been a baller, an absolute baller at New Orleans. And you scroll down a little bit, all the way down here to get to Pascal Siakam, taken 27th by the Raptors. Man, do the Sixers want that pick back? They took Furkan Korkmaz, one pick ahead of Pascal Siakam. But a lot of people were upset with the Raptors for drafting Siakam over Labissiere, who went 28th. As you can see with the wins above replacement here, Siakam has turned into a fine player. You also don't need the wins above replacement to know Pascal Siakam was an excellent draft pick. An absolute steal at 27th overall. But we're not talking about the draft position. We're talking about the pure talent between these two players here. So we're going to talk a little bit about the accolades. We're going to talk a little bit about the stats. But most importantly, we're going to take those things and use them in unison with what we see from them on the court. Because all of the factors around the player show you how good he is. Now, I don't like to really do like long list and sort of comparison, but I think comparing two players is something that we can do and something that I enjoy doing. So let's look at Pascal Siakam. Siakam, accolade standpoint, I mean, what people really compare them a lot for is because they were drafted same year along with Jaylen Brown. And I spoke in a live stream and on the Clips channel, the third channel for Amateur Hour, about where I would have Siakam in the redraft. Now, I personally think that it's comparable between Ingram and Jaylen Brown. The list that I saw in particular had Brown and Ingram above Siakam in third. And I thought that was, I think he was third. I thought that was a little bit strange to put him there. So starting with the accolades, you've got Siakam, who's got the 1 All-Star appearance and the 2 All-NBA appearances. And he was All-NBA in the most recent season. The fact that he was All-NBA really makes me think he was snubbed for an All-Star appearance. I thought he was snubbed at the time, but the fact he made All-NBA and not All-Star, I think making All-NBA showcases that you should have been an All-Star. Regardless, Brandon Ingram is a one-time All-Star, just like Siakam, a 0-time All-NBA player. And then you can also go to Jaylen Brown, just for the redraft sake, one-time All-Star, 0-time All-NBA. Siakam's been a 2-time All-NBA player, which is really interesting when comparing him to these two players. But the accolades don't mean everything. We can also dive into the statistics for the players. You've got Pascal Siakam. This most recent season was just spectacular. Such a treat to watch, averaging nearly 50% from the field, really cleaning up his game, really fine-tuning his game, getting the three-point percentage back up to near 35%, 23 points per game, career high in reboundings by a lot, career high in assists by a lot at 8.5 and 5.3 respectively. And then you go to Brandon Ingram. Also, spectacular season. He averages near 23 points per game, almost 24 in the 2 seasons prior to that. Efficiency, a little bit less. You could maybe blame that a bit on maybe his mid-range shooting. I'd like to see 2-point percentage is 50% for Brandon Ingram and 53% nearly for Siakam. So that's really interesting. Could be the difficulty of shots. But hey, from an analytics standpoint, from a statistical standpoint, if you're making the easier shots more often, you can go take the easier shots. You've got to add in the mid-range game to kind of spice it up, make people think about you a little bit extra on defense, but something to be said there. Those stats don't mean everything. The stats in general don't mean everything. 3-point percentage regressed from near 40%, incredibly, to 33% this season. It's still not bad, but something he'll look to improve. Rebounding and assisting. I love that 5.6 assist. He's a bit of an underrated playmaker. I think a lot of people in these arguments can kind of slight Brandon Ingram maybe for not being a great playmaker. You watch him play, he is a good playmaker. And the way the New Orleans Pelicans played this season, how good they were, and how good we expect it to be this season, Brandon Ingram and his playmaking are going to be part of that. Not quite as much as his scoring, but an underrated playmaker in my estimation. So we kind of dove into the stats here. I haven't looked at this before going in, so my expectation is the defense is probably going to favor Siakam by a good amount. And from an offensive rating standpoint to defensive rating, this is not everything. These stats don't mean everything. I'm going to reiterate that. Siakam, his offensive rating is 116, very good. Defensive rating is 110, could be better. For Brandon Ingram, offensive rating is 111, defensive rating is 115. So if you don't know how offensive and defensive rating works, again, this is not the be-all, end-all stats. These stats just kind of give us hints and give us a little bit of things to look for when we're actually watching them play. And kind of when we watch them play, even we can go back to these stats later and see, like, okay, maybe there's something that I didn't quite realize. We have to use the eye test, analytics, statistics, all of these things in unison to really evaluate a player. So what offensive and defensive rating, what they showcase is the amount of points expected offensively that you are going to produce over 100 possessions. And for Siakam, that's 116. So over 100 possessions, he's on average going to produce 160 points. Defensive rating works the opposite way. It's the amount of points that you are going to allow as a result of being in your position. So for Siakam, that's 110. He allows 110 over 100 possessions. That could be better. Brandon Ingram's down at 115. Brandon Ingram is not that good of a defender. So from a comparison standpoint, offensively and defensively, we're going to look at two things here, and we're going to use these sort of statistics to help us help guide us in the right direction to picking a player. Now, I will say there are certain situations where each player could be better for a specific environment. So for the Raptors, where you want that switchability on defense, Siakam is the right player for them. The Pelicans, I mean, even looking at them, having that two-way winger, my favorite Siakam. So let's go into the breakdown. Let's start with the offense. Offensively, Siakam is spectacular, as is Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram maybe does a little bit extra in terms of scoring. I would say he's a bit of a better scorer, but I don't think there's much separation from an offensive standpoint. They both have a little bit of a different style. Brandon Ingram's more of like the KD type of player. Siakam's more of the slasher, getting to the rim type of player. Both of those sort of archetypes have their place in the NBA. Both can be successful in the NBA, but Brandon Ingram, a bit of a different player. He takes a little bit more threes. He averages 4.4 times per game to Pascal Siakam's 3. Loved how Siakam kind of toned down his shooting to favor getting to the rim, to favor the mid-range game. Playmaking, I favor Siakam. I think he does more from a playmaking standpoint, but again, I'm going to reiterate, Brandon Ingram is a good playmaker as well. They both pass the ball well, they both move the ball well, and are great players in that regard. Where we're going to find separation between these two players, because it is very thin from an offensive standpoint, and I'm sure you kind of saw me trending towards where I'm about to speak on. Defensively, I mean, we don't, defensive rating kind of showcases very minimal, but we take that in unison with what we've seen on the court between the two players. The Pelicans were fun to watch. And granted, I'm watching every single Raptors game. I work a 9 to 5. I do other stuff with my life. I'm not watching every single New Orleans Pelicans game. Let's just make that clear. From what I've seen from Brandon Ingram, not the best defender. Not a great defender. You'd certainly want that to improve. Siakam is a great defender. So if we're talking about the margins from how close it is offensively, there's a wide gap defensively. Siakam is a great on-ball defender, a very good help defender as well. His length, his speed, and his feel for the game defensively really aids him as a defender to be super effective in those positions. Brandon Ingram is just not that sort of guy that stays with his check like Siakam does. Not as great of a help defender, and I don't think this is any sort of surprise that I'm saying this. So, there are some teams that want Brandon Ingram because he's getting a ton of points on maybe some more difficult shots, and he can be sort of that focal point offensively. And that was pretty clear in the Phoenix Suns series in the playoffs. I recognize the Pelicans lost that series, but like a Herculean effort from Brandon Ingram in that series that showcased like he can be that guy. I'm actually interested to see right now what his points per game were in that playoff series. Averaged 27 points per game. And he upped his efficiency like that. This is a dog, absolute dog on offense. That's incredible. That's incredible. 48% from the field, 41 from three, 27 points. Yeah, he's a guy. It's only 6 games, small sample size, but very impressive. Siakam, playoff standpoint, he's an NBA champion. When we were speaking about accolades, I actually bring that up. NBA champ, Brandon Ingram. Those are the only 6 playoff games of his career. Siakam has done it in the playoffs as well. He's an NBA champion. You can take one 7-game sample size to slight Siakam in the playoffs. I recognize that series against Boston in the bubble was horrific. That's a 7-game sample size. Other than that, he's been great. And other than that game 3 against Philly this year, he's been great in the playoffs, and especially in game 4 and 5. Wow, was Siakam absolutely dialed in for the Raptors there. But overall, there are certain teams that will favor Ingram. This is a very close argument. I'm going to respect anybody who thinks Ingram is better than Siakam. I'm not going to say, how can you even think that sort of thing? But from my perspective, the way I'm kind of looking at it, Siakam isn't far off Ingram offensively, and he's just a much better defender. So for that reason, defense is... People say it's just as important. I would say it's almost as important because at the end of the day, this game is about buckets. I'm going to go with Pascal Siakam in this argument. This isn't some, if you don't think it's Siakam, you don't know ball type of thing. But I'm going with Siakam here. I think a lot of Raptors fans, like the people watching this video, will agree with me. Most NBA neutrals seem to not really like Siakam, so we'll kind of see. But I'm going with Pascal Siakam in this one. So the NBA fans who think Brandon Ingram is better, I don't think necessarily they're wrong for thinking that, but I think I disagree. How about that? I'm going to go with Siakam. But let me know what you guys think. Who is the better player and why? Let us know in the comments down below. Start that discussion with some other fellow amateur TV watchers. You keep up to date with all these videos by subscribing to the channel, helping us on our road to 2,000 subs. How many are we even at in this channel? I think we're getting close to 1,600. I think we're getting close to 1,600. And make sure to spread the word of the channel. Help support even more. Drop a like on the video. Goes a long way, again, to supporting the channel. We'll see you again next time for another video on Amateur TV.